Welcome home. Two words that not everybody gets to experience when they get back home. You found us here on the Welcome Home podcast, where we talk about the transformation from troops and boots to veterans in the civilian world. As always, I'm joined by my co-host Dylan Sessler. Sessler? I can never pronounce his name. It's important Dylan's here. National Guard, couple deployments, mental health coach, counselor, ninja of all things, and our guest this week, Albert Weins. Dylan, how are you this week?
I'm good. I feel like you get that wrong every time. It's Sessler.
100%. Sessler. See, Casey's name is Casey Bubba Lawrence. It's very similar. But, Dylan's got 7 S's in his name, so I get thrown off.
I have a lot of S's.
All right. Albert Weins, tell us a little bit about yourself before we get into the meat of the program.
Yeah, sure, certainly. Thanks, guys, for having me here. I always love the opportunity to hang out with veterans and drink a little bit and say a few swear words. So,
all approved.
But yeah, so I started my career enlisted side in the infantry late '90s, and got medically discharged in 2000. Was in college when 9/11 happened, and tried to get back in a couple of different ways. The Army had just opened up a special operations straight to Q course kind of a thing, and post 9/11 they wouldn't even let me in. They're like, hey, you got tattoos. So some general of recruiting was like, no, we're not allowing anybody with tattoos in. Stupid. So anyway, I then went to Houston, Texas, and went through a board to see if I could get straight in to fly helicopters as a warrant officer, because you don't need a degree for that at a warrant level. And so I boarded. I was qualified non-select, which means come back next month. If you don't make it next month, then you can't see us for another year. So I was like, well, F this. I want to be in charge of my own life. So I just applied for the nearest ROTC program, got into A&M Corpus Christi, and bam, boom, bam, a few years later, I'm flying medevac missions. So got selected for medevac and flew my long tour over in Afghanistan, 09 and 10. So did some pretty gnarly stuff out in Korengal Valley, shit ton of dust landings out along Highway 1. So that's my history. I got out around that time frame. I realized, just like everybody else from most of us GWAT era guys, you can't make the world a better place from a war zone. You got to go home and be with your kids, be at your dinner table. I now have 5 kids, got remarried. I was like most of us, divorced, all that kind of stuff during that time frame. Now I have 5 kids, blended family. And now I own 2 main companies, the Fulfilled Veteran Project and the Fulfilled Veteran Network. And now I've worked with over 2,000 clients that mostly special operators, helping them get their disability ratings up to 100% permanent total like I am through a streamlined medical process. And then I created the Fulfilled Veteran Network as well to help these guys and gals get connected way faster, because one of the biggest pain points all of us have in transition is we just lose ourselves. We don't know what to do. And that's where people like me and you are getting together to be like, hey, let's help these folks. So using our magic. So I'm usually around special operators in some way, shape, or form. So that's the gist.
Well, I'll take a question if you don't mind.
Certainly.
So obviously Korengal is not a pleasant place. I wasn't far outside of it, but I had never had the pleasure to go there, which I'm not upset about.
Yeah.
When you came home from that deployment to Korengal, what was your struggle like? What was that? Obviously, that's not an easy place to come back from. What was your experience like, and what was it like to reintegrate back into life again?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, man, it's so bizarre going to Korengal Valley. That place was a freaking nightmare for those who know anything about it. I don't know if you guys know this statistic, but out of both wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, over 80%, I think it was, of the ordnance dropped was in the Korengal Valley alone. So if that shows you how kinetic it is, nobody wants to go into that damn thing. And one time I flew in, and I've got it on video. I've got a 5-minute hover that I held as we're picking people up. It's bittersweet, right? That it's in the middle of the daytime, people are hurt. Come to find out, it was a college. I was in ROTC, so one of my not classmates. He was behind me. It was his platoon that was under fire, and this was in the middle of the day. I don't remember a cloud in the sky. I'd have to go review the tape, but it was the only clouds around were dust and freaking machine guns shooting off and all that kind of stuff. All the Kiowas were in there, Apaches were in there, and I'm just holding this 5-minute hover, staring at a house plant as I'm just doing my thing. And I mean, you can't really think about all the crap that's going on at the time, other than like, hoist them up, hoist them down, that kind of stuff. But yeah, man, transition. You talk about a tough one. I think I'm like most people. I had a pretty damn tough transition. I think like most of us combat guys. I mean, I got out as a captain, and I walked out with my chest out like most of us do. Walk into a room, and that's why I came to Indiana. By the way, that's why I'm here, is to help network and things like that. I'm not from Indiana. I'm from Texas originally, and my the pace was so fast at the time that I was getting out that my branch manager was like, hey, you can either go take a command and we're going to turn you into a unicorn, which is great for you, but somebody else is going to lose a lot of hours and stuff, or we can put you out in the most metropolitan place that we have available, which is Indianapolis, Indiana. And I was like, well, you give the unicorn stuff to somebody who's going to stay in. I'm going to go to Indianapolis. And so I tried to network. Indianapolis has a ton of veterans here. The home of the American Legion is here. Many, many other things. But what they don't have is like the legit, what do I need now kind of stuff. I think they've got a lot of the small things covered from different angles, but I don't think they're really doing all that great with all the big stuff that most of us need. So here I was, just like most people. I had my, cars. I had gone through a divorce, things like that. So of course a lot of that was split in half. Had my cars, had my great apartment downtown, had my chest out. Oh, I'm gonna be wearing a suit and tie in no time. Somebody's gonna be paying me, because I was making 6 figures as a pilot, and just right over the line, $101,000 a year or something like that. And I thought, okay, somebody's gonna hire me to do good stuff. Nope. Like we learned, right, that the money stops, but the bills keep on coming. And oh my God, a few months later, I'm on my ass. Right after getting out, I met my now wife. We went from living in, like, I had 25-foot ceilings in this giant apartment to living in a 1-bedroom. We're sharing we've got a mattress for her son when he stays every other week, kind of a thing. And I mean, we grew out of it pretty fast, but it was fucking painful. I don't know if I can say that, but it was painful. It was painful. I didn't know that I could shatter a chair in the way that I shattered a chair once. And I'm not a violent guy. Maybe the chair was weak. I don't know. It just, I would Bruce Lee the shit out of it. The thing blew up. It was insane. So, because it's so infuriating, man. I mean, I've had my car repossessed. We've all been through stuff like that. I've got a horrible ex-wife, so she doesn't add to the value add of anything. But, thank goodness everybody's healthy. But aside from that, I think I've been through pretty much all the struggles of, you feel I'm better than this, right? I think everybody would say this. I'm better than my situation, but I don't know what to do about my situation.
Yeah, but great. I'm better, but so what?
Yeah,
right?
And
I say that with love. Like, okay, so what? What are you going to do about it? Or what aren't you going to do about it? Or what can you do about it? And that's what I learned.
Like, I was active, guys. I was in boards and committees, local ones. I lived downtown, so I was right next door to 2 main clubs downtown Indianapolis that had movers and shakers, but they weren't all veterans, and they weren't like recent veterans either. So they didn't know that like immediate struggle. They're like, oh, well, just like everybody else in the civilian world, you're just going to swing from one vine to the next financially, and you'll be fine. Holy crap, man. And there's so many alluring companies out there that sound good, but then you're like, oh, it's a straight commission, like for selling insurance or something. They're going to wine and dine you. They're going to put you in a suit. They're going to monkey parade you around until you figure out they're taking money out of your pocket and hours that you can't gain back. So things like that happen to me and a lot of other people. But yeah, these folks that I thought were going to be able to help me didn't. And I think that does add, don't let me poo-poo on all the processes, because it did lead me to where I am, which now I'm helping more people. So I think maybe that's another, what'd you call it? I don't call it a maze, but like a struggle, or what? You guys probably have a better word than I do right now, but like the
Well,
struggle that you have to go through to realize that you went through it, kind of a thing. And
100%. I
yeah,
love the word struggle, right? Because to your point, right? I came back home. I read about this in my book, right? I bitched and moaned, right? That I'm a combat veteran. Why is it there's not this or not that? Why? Where's my handout? Well, it's like, well, no, I had to go through that, right? And I really didn't want a handout. I wasn't looking for a handout. I was looking for a hand up, but and I didn't know where to look because, like you, I went to the American Legion meetings. I went to the VFW, and that was 15, 16 years ago. There wasn't networks like you have, or hell, I was in LA this last weekend shooting some content with a gentleman. His name's David. He'll be on a future episode here of the Welcome Home podcast, and he has a whole network that's revolves around advisors and advisees for basically his thing is it's like E5s, E6s that are transitioning, right? A lot of E5s, E6s, a lot of 03, 04s, right? It's like somewhere in the middle of their career. They're not retirement money, but they're also not. I'm gonna go back home and be a laborer. I did my 3 years and got out, right? And so we didn't have there was a demand for the services, right? And the services like you have, we're not talking about what the VA offers or your state or this nonprofit. Like, you have a legitimate organization that provides a service, and then your network, is that a nonprofit or is that a for-profit or is that
both of mine are profits, for
yeah,
profits. Yeah, you can make
right.
things work more with for profits in most
Oh
cases.
no, I can tell you. Well, I can tell you, being a business person, the only difference between a nonprofit and a for-profit is one of them gets paid on the front end, one of them gets paid on the back end. Right?
Exactly.
Nonprofits get
That's how
paid
I
up
view
front
it.
and then deliver, right?
Yeah.
And that's it. And so I got a for-profit company. Dylan's for-profit counselor. Right? I'd rather pay for something and get results than getting something handed me for free that may or may not work.
Right.
Right? There's also a level of commitment, right? If you don't, like you said, you have over 2,000 veterans that you've supported, with disability readings. It's like, I know plenty of nonprofits out there where they don't give a hill of beans whether or not you get your rating or not. When you're a for-profit, if you don't deliver, you don't have another customer.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Exactly.
So, that's a big misnomer, right? There's a lot of, like you said too, which is interesting and very for those of you listeners that are, about to transition or recently have transitioned. Can't tell you how many people, like you said, they'll put you in a suit, they'll tell you how much money you can make. Oh, by the way, it's 100% commission based, or oh, by the way, it's a base of this plus salary. And then, the average person can do this, and it's like, well, those companies are always hiring. There's a reason, because the average person doesn't stick around, especially when you talk about commission-based sales. And they want your network, they want your military experience, they want your ability to self-lead, the autonomy that you can run off of, but they don't give a lot in return. A business card and a product or service to sell. And some people do very well there. I would argue most veterans don't. And a lot of those companies prey on veterans because it's a numbers game to them. They know 1 in 10 of us are going to make it, and they don't care about that other 9. And I say that, and if we have listeners out there that say, hey, I was that 1 in 10, good on you.
Yeah.
Power to you. I'm glad it worked. But I know, to your point, I almost sold insurance, right? During that time I got back home, like I was take my test away from being an insurance salesman, and I finally looked around and was like, wait, I got to pay all this money to go contact all these people to maybe sell some life insurance and auto. And I was like, I don't want, like, again, it sounded great. Like you said, wine, dine, the whole 9 yards. I didn't even think, 15 years I've been home now, 16, well, I guess we're in 2023, 16 years I've been home now, and I remember that like it was yesterday. And that had been 2009, because I had a job when I came home, but I wasn't ready and right for it back in 2007. But by 2009, I would take an interview with anyone that would have me. So all the things you're saying are accurate. And so what was the catalyst now, or what was the evolution? So you went from no job. Did you get the career? Did you get the job? What was the next step in your evolution?
Yeah, so I now have the jobs that nobody knew existed, as one guy told me. And I did like most people. I was applying for hospitals, stuff like that. Since I was a medical service corps officer, that's what all medevac captains and officers are. So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, well maybe I can work at a hospital or something like that and be a project manager. Maybe one day wear the biggest suit and tie, being the CEO or CSO or something like that. And so anyway, uh, I did like most of us. When you meet the second wife and start having more kids, you kind of go to school a little bit more, get a few more letters after your name that now don't mean a whole lot of extra shit. But, but during that time frame too, I was like, well, I need to take care of myself. I did receive, thankfully, I had a good mentor. So as I was getting out, I had a good mentor who was a former infantry guy, and he helped me receive. I ended up receiving 90% rating, and I thought, man, I thought I was going to get anywhere from 30 to 70, and I was going to be content with that. But then, of course, I get 90, and I have sticker shock for like 5 years because nobody knows what any of their immediate ratings are because it's just ghost math. Nobody knows, and they're like, as a veteran, you're like, I got 70 or 30 or 10 or whatever. I feel like I'm being screwed, but I don't know. There's no real criteria here, but then so a few years later, of course, I'm like everybody. I'm getting older, and my boo-boos are hurting more, right? So I went to the VA doctor, and weird story, but I've actually seen the same VA doctor for quite a few years at this point, which is usually unheard of. And anyway, so I said, hey doc, so I'm here today because been at 90% for 5 years, so I'm wanting to how do I get my increase going? And the doc looks at me like I'm retarded, and he's like, we don't do that. That's the other side of the house. That's not the medical side. That's the disability side and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, okay, so I guess I'll just go F myself. And he's like, we'll just reach out to DAV, American Legion, whatever. And I was like, okay, whatever. So I found a DAV guy was at an event that I went to, and come to find out that was a nightmare. So thankfully, anyway, long story short, so I started pursuing my increase, and the DAV was steering me in the wrong damn direction. I'm not poo-pooing on anybody, but I'm telling you, if somebody's telling you to do something you don't want to do, and it's medical, you're the one in charge as the veteran. So I was like, I don't really like that guy's path for me. So I just happened to be looking on LinkedIn at the time, came across a guy who was a contractor with Remedical, who now I work with, and I was like, okay, well, let me reach out to this guy. So anyway, a few days later, I'm their client. 6 months later, I'm 100% permanent in total. And I was like, holy crap, man. I mean, 2 days after I filed my claim, I'm 100% permanent in total. That's how good their process is. So I was like, holy shit, former medevac pilot, love helping veterans quickly. How do I do this? And they said, well, we just started creating these contracts and contractors. So I started doing contracting with Remedical in January of 2023. But like everybody, I was doing it more like for the fun money at first. Like, oh, I'm not really selling this, and I know the process, but let's see. And so I started doing some consulting and learning the process. It takes a couple months to really get your head wrapped around it. So by the time that I started in January, I had 10 clients. Then February 10, the month after 10, and I was like, holy crap. Even that, I guess, got the ear of the owner, who was like, hey man, there's going to come a point where you have to grow. And when you grow, you have to hire somebody to do your laundry. You have to either choose if you want to pick your kids up or have clients, that sort of thing. So anyway, I was like, okay, how can I go from 10 to 20? And then when I got to 20, how to get to 40? Because I love helping veterans. So if I can help, I didn't look at it like, hey, that's how I felt about it. I'm only helping 10 in a month. That's nothing. I now I had 7 clients today, if that gives you perspective. But it started growing, and I needed people. So I started hiring staff and that sort of thing, and I started getting more and more into my people of connecting with medevac pilots, other Black Hawk guys, Apache dudes, 160th, and then that started growing into more and more special operators and pilots and other just badass people. And I've got like a boutique book of business, but the best in the world now come to me. So every day is SEALs and Rangers and Green Berets and MARSOC, and the people out there who have done the highest level of anything are my clients. And I've got them not in onesie twosies, but in like little pockets. So, like all the Apache guys in guitar, those guys are mine. The Central America drug interdiction, air crews and ground crews, those guys are mine. FBI, DEA, CIA, all anything you can name, and probably a shadow or two above them are mine. And so like, so yeah, it's just been such a blast, and I'm not going anywhere. And so now I handle just shy of 100 new clients per month on the medical side. And then after talking to so many of them, they're very business savvy, sales savvy, things like that. So that's how I came across the network, which is a franchise. I bought into the NIA, Network in Action, which is a networking franchise. So I bought into that last year. It wasn't planned, so I was like, okay, I already had a plan for last year to go to a bunch of conventions like Heli Expo, SOFIC, which is now called Soft Week since Global Soft took over it. Many other things. I don't want to get too deep, but I'm always around savvy, I would say, entrepreneurs, because veterans are problem solvers. Problem solvers are, that's just a different word for entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I'm around so many of them. And that's why I was like, oh, this just goes up hand in hand. So that's how I started that, which we really did launch it truthfully in this month, January 2023.
So what are some of the trends that you've seen with the veterans you work with? You know, we like to ask this question pretty broad because I really want to hear from you. What are some trends that you've seen with transitioning, or I like to use the word transforming, right?
Sure.
But that critical point, right, when you take off the uniform for the last time, what are some trends you've seen with the individuals that you've associated with yourself through the years?
No, I really do like that word. I'm going to steal that from you, transforming, because it is. It should be. You should be transforming. You shouldn't be. And it's. I wish people would. I wish the whatever VAs or Army or whomever, military, Uncle Sam, at some point could say, hey guys, here's what's going to happen. You're not transitioning. You are transforming. So there's that like self expectation of no matter who you are, you're still you. It's not you're living in your past of being, oh, I was a Green Beret, I was a SEAL, I was a Ranger. It's you need to just keep moving forwards. And that's the crazy part, is that's like so many of the Tier 1, Tier 2's mottos. Keep moving forwards, right? So, but yeah, I'm still in that transformation. I think that's such a better term, because it is. It should be the expectation of transforming. Trends that I'm seeing, yes. That's why I started my network, is that no matter how many people I was talking to per day as new clients and how badass they were in their history, they all feel the same. It's like a same, it's a betrayal. I'm going to use that harsh word purposely. It's a betrayal. It's, hey, I served my country. I was out in front of the enemy. I was taking the fight to the enemy so that we could keep it away from our kitchen tables. And then here it is, Uncle Sam is just screwing me over out of my money, out of my youth, out of my time that I can't get back. I mean, it's such a betrayal. And some of these guys, whether getting out on normal processes or not, like if they had maybe gotten a med board or something, quick injury from a teammate or something, then they have to get out. All of them feel like major league athletes who just had the light turned off. They're just like, fuck, man, what do I do? And that's why I like trying to get a hold of them faster, and I brief them that, like, hey, you're doing this just like everybody else is. It's not just you. So when I'm briefing them on mental health things that they're going through, memory loss or walking into a closet, forgetting why you're there, getting older sucks, right? All that kind of stuff. Like just these normal things that people think that they don't want to complain about it. I've seen many groups of these guys getting together on Zoom with me, and none of them want to take money from their buddy. They don't want to screw their buddy over. But that's where I have to like remove all the brainwashing and say, this is your money. These are your poker chips that you've earned by your service. So you're not taking anything away from your buddy and that sort of thing. And so they, once they come to that realization, it's a little easier to work with them more appropriately. But yeah, they're definitely all going through it just like we all did or doing. So
yeah,
that's 100%.
Well, and no, the word there is right. It's the present participle. I think that's the right word. I love words, right? But going, not or doing, not did whatever, right? It is the transformation is forever lasting. One of the things you mentioned, Donnie O'Malley, the founder of Vet TV, was our very first guest, and one of the things he talked about was, you got to stop talking about what you did in service, and that's been eye opening to me. I'm still in the reserves. Dylan here, he's still in the National Guard.
Gotcha.
Once a month I shave my face, I cut my hair, I put the uniform on, I do the thing. There's going to be a day that I'm going to take off the uniform for the last time, and I'll make a Facebook post and I'll say hoorah, and we did the thing, and I'll wait till I'm 65 to get my check, right? And then there's going to be some day between the day I took my uniform off and when that check shows up, that's going to hit me that I'm a veteran. Good on you, right? But I'm no longer actively serving, and it's a piece of me, and now I'm Andy, and that's scary, right? Because since I was 20 years old, I've been, private PFC sergeant something Weins, and that's an identifier with me, and it's a really good, safe, fallback position, right? And someday I'm not going to be that, and I think your college athlete's a great example. It's like you went from being an elite thing that you've trained for all your life to next day nothing. Right?
You're bagging groceries.
Right, you're a nothing burger.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're a free agent without a skill set, or with not the skills that you trained for, and it's like then you have that. I actually read something earlier today. It's like, don't be an asshole to yourself, right? Like you can be honest with yourself, but don't beat yourself up. There's plenty of assholes in the world, and it's like, you're right. You went from being a highly motivated, especially you talk about your special operators, and then where those individuals, it's like high speed as fuck to what do I do now?
Yeah.
Right. Especially if it's something that's
right.
Great. Especially if it's a physical thing where it's now negatively impacting their physical life, and then the mental and emotional toll. It's just, and then you throw financial, right? All these things they're just dumping on you, and you're already in the hole, and now you're getting dumped on. So, and that's why this podcast is important, because what you said is right. I hate the word wish. I think whatever. A lot of words I've eliminated from my vernacular, and that's what I wrote my book on. But it's like, well, let's not wish. Let's do. Right? Is there going to be a day where the TAPS, the Transition Assistance Program, is not going to suck? Yeah, maybe. Maybe if we put the work in. Yeah. And I tell you what, it ain't gonna happen from the federal government. Right? It was the veterans before us, everything from the veterans after World War I that camped out on the lawn until they were literally chased off by troops, to the Vietnam vets that fought for the rights and a lot of the entitlements. Right now, we talk about benefits and entitlements, but the entitlements that we have today because veterans went and fought for them, and the transition programs, the 2-day bullshit classes, aren't going to change unless we do something about it. It's like, it's not good enough that we have health care. We need more. And at least the truth. At least give us the truth. At least don't lie to us for 2 days and tell us it's going to be all sunshine and rainbows when we go home. Yeah. Because that's what we're told.
Mm-hmm. One of my clients said that PTSD is when you finally realize that you're not the badass that you used to be. That's when it really sinks in.
That might be a good title of the episode. But no, that it is true. It's because you're not operating on this high octane, assertive, aggressive, let's go all the time. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden you're just Andy, or you're just Dylan. You're just right. I'm already talking myself down, right? Because you used to be something else, and you hold yourself in this high esteem or high regard.
Well, it's something about the civilian. Here's what I found out too. So my wife is a project manager for a giant company, and even with them, that they, like in the military, you have natural career progression. That the person in front of you is going to help you out. You're going to help the next person out, so on. It takes this much to get E4, E5, E6, 12, whatever. And it's like the civilian world doesn't have any of that protocol. The civilian world is just somebody at the very top is getting rich of whatever, Coke or Amazon or something. And everybody else under them, nobody gives a shit about. Because there's just kind of like the NFL, right? It's like, hey, once somebody's out, somebody's going to come right back in and backfill. So nobody higher up gives a flying shit about retention. I'm telling you, nobody cares. So here's what you said that really made me want to go on to this tirade here. I work with so many high-speed people. I call this the high-speed ceiling fan effect. We've all had that high-speed fan that works like a champ when it's on high, but then you turn it down to low and it goes wow, 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 and the chain's like just flopping all different directions. And that's when I said that in a group of people the other day, and I think it was 15 people in the room. I had to come to find out he's a ranger that was really Delta guy. We had two civil affairs people. We had every officer in the room was a Mustang, so we had two medevac guys. We had a Green Beret. We had an Apache guy. Anyway, good list of people, right? And I didn't know any of them. And I told them that. I said, you guys all sound like ceiling fans. That you were high speed for the longest time, and then the civilian world just slowed you down, put you on low, and you're very uncomfortable. And they're all like, yeah, that's exactly it. It's exactly how I feel. So that's what it is. And these guys just, I thought that too. Hey, I'm going to go work for this hospital. It's a big hospital group. They're going to pay me good money, and I'm going to be doing the things. Here's the thing. The civilian world, unfortunately, doesn't give a shit about you, especially like your history. Civilians want to know, what have you done for me lately, right? Mm-hmm. So even me, I still have to prove myself to people who I'm making $100 to $150, $200,000 a month to, kind of a thing. Like, I'm selling for somebody else, if you will, in short, which is totally fine. But and even if you're asking for like a raise or something, even being entrepreneurial, right? That every year something's going to change. Like we as veterans or disabled veterans, if you will, veterans with boo-boos, we all got a, what was it, like 8 point something raise. Terrific. What 8 point something raise when the economy's out of fucking control. But as a person, as a veteran especially, you always have to sell yourself. You're in sales all the time. Your resume is selling yourself. You sold yourself for either your resume, your salary, whatever it is, and it's all about sales. You have to know yourself and know what that person on the other side has to vote with that dollar.
I think it's a basic function of human existence. You know, like as humans, we're social creatures. You know, and I think sales almost feels like a turnoff because it's far more intricate than that and far more natural. I have to make you like me, or I don't get to benefit from the relationship and the resources that you have. And what is interesting about veterans is that they come from a place of high resources and high relationships to a place of something that they have to earn again, right? They have to step into a relationship and say, I have no resources and I have no relationships. And civilians look at them and like, how can I use that, right? Well, companies have looked at this and said, well, we can use the fact that you're a veteran, you know, and put you into our, you know, we serve veterans as a company, right? And we have veterans that work for us. And that's about it.
Check the box.
Yeah, I mean, it's no different from the military. It checks that box.
Yeah.
But veterans, I feel, you know, the more and more we kind of get into this, there's this sense of entitlement that is oddly ironic because, you know, every time I go to a drill or hang out with either veterans or, you know, active military, we always have these conversations about how civilians are so entitled and they have these expectations of life and society and whatever. But then on the flip side, we get out of the military and people get out of the military and they're like, these expectations of everything's supposed to be like the military in terms of, well, give me what I'm owed, what I need, what I'm supposed to have. And that's an interesting dichotomy. It's an interesting irony because that sense of entitlement is actually what I think is taking away from their, you know, veterans' ability to really foster relationships and build networks because they expect this to just be offered to them. And that's an interesting thought for me. But I'm curious what you think about that, Albert.
No, I like how you put that, and I believe it too, that you go back to 10,000 years ago, up until about, 200 years ago, we're animals. We're tribal,
Yep.
and like you said, when you're in a group, I like to use Indian tribes every now and then. Of like, when you're in this Indian tribe, everybody knows everybody. When your TP is 20 feet away from the other person's, you know everything about them. And there's a Marine guy that's one of my clients. And he said, you spend as a service member a lot of time eerily close to a lot of other people, right? We sleep next to each other, especially combat guys that were deployed together, and like you're in trucks together and cars together and just the freaking showers together. Like you are around each other all the time, and you become this tribe. And I really like your perspective on that, because it is a weird dichotomy of you got these two tribes coming at each other. One is I call them bees or flies. So bees, very communal. They're doing they're working. They've all got like structure. They're doing good things. Whereas, and I would say too about bees that like they've only got one life to live. They got one stinger. They're not going to sting somebody just for some random thing. They're not going to do that. So they have to pick their battles. They have to smartly use their defense mechanisms. And so then you got flies. Well, they eat shit for 6 weeks and die. But you need both. An ecosystem needs both. So I think we need both. I think COVID really showed a lot of how that there are different people, and I've used this a lot with even my kids, where it's like, well, there are biblically good people and there are biblically bad people. So if it were just good and evil, let's just kind of stick with that rather than, bees and all that kind of stuff. But good people want to do good things with other good people. Bad people just want to do bad things. And it doesn't make sense. You can't understand why somebody who's evil wants to be evil. I talked to somebody the other day, and all he did was talk about money. And he's a veteran, very well-respected veteran. And I was like, hey, man, well, I hear you. But for me, it's not about the money. It's about the mission. I love that I'm a boutique firm and that I've got these great clients and that they send me even more great clients and I get to go travel and see them. So I feel like I'm living this life of abundance. What I do helps people in life-changing events. And I'm there for it. Like, that's so freaking cool to me, guys, that I'm there for life-changing events. I helped a woman the other day. She's 25. She'll be 26 this year. Get her 100% permanent total. It's life-changing for her. It's life-changing for the guy that I talked to today who's 70. Right? Anybody who gets a $3 million raise in their lifetime, holy crap, man, life is changing. I had $180,000 of student loans wiped off my record. That's life-changing, et cetera, et cetera. I could explain more. But that's what I like to be around for, is those life-changing, and I'm on that good side of people just doing good things together. And it's not my job to analyze the negative other than just know that they're out there. And I think that's one of the weirdest things that we have to realize now, is that we are living in the weird good versus evil times. And so that's something I would say everybody needs, who's listening to this or will listen to it, needs to put into their mental rucksack of, there are a lot of people that don't give a living shit about you, and they're evil people. So, and they could be somebody you're currently married to. So people are that close to you and you just don't see it until after something happens. And yeah, anyway, so, but yeah, I'm like you. I'm really just so utterly intrigued by how people work together and how they do things. And that's why I'm glad that I've had the clientele that I've had, because you can't have my clients without performing. Like, if I weren't performing, they would kill me. So, SEALs and Rangers and stuff don't usually write like a bad review. They'll just find me and take me out. So that's what's great about it. It's we're just here doing good things, guys. So
have you seen, because of your experience with the more special operations thing, have you seen the trends with them similar to everyday veterans? I mean, Dylan's an infantry guy. I was a truck driver and then MP, right? I'm support as fuck, right? Have you seen trends that are different when it comes to more the guys that are directly operational?
I think it's just a difference between the pace. The outcomes are still the same. The VA is still doing the same thing to all of them. The VA, I would say, is screwing them all. I can prove that, but
Well, I'm talking more about
yeah.
deviate away from the VA and
Mhm.
that piece because it's more the mindset. Or are they struggling the same way everybody else is, or is there things that they're struggling with that are
Well,
different?
yeah, definitely. I would say a little different because like the high speed guys are used to everything happening for them now, whereas when I was in E3, you were standing in lines all the time, right? Like it's
Yeah.
kind of like some people who are used to standing in lines, other people who aren't, and that's pretty much it. So I would say they're again going back to the high speed ceiling fan thing. Maybe these other guys are on medium or low always anyway, and that's totally fine. But they're still hitting that same struggle bus. And there's so many guys and gals that I've had on where I'm briefing them on a mental health briefing, and their spouse is on speakerphone, and the spouse is like, "Oh my God, how long have you guys known each other, Albert? You know everything there is to know about this guy." And I'm like, "No, we're all the same. We're just oddly all the same. We all have memory issues at these levels. We're dented and dinged, and we have different feelings. Some people, of course, are going to have, like any human, just different perspectives of maybe something negative happened to them and kind of a woe is me. One guy called it a pity party. Veterans need to stop having pity parties because you'll find yourself having it. It's like, oh, well,
Well, yeah,
today
what
wasn't
was
this or
me?
this year
Pity
wasn't
party. It's all victimhood, right? You have the
that.
opportunity
Yeah,
here, right? Are you a victim of your circumstance, or you're a victor of your story? And if you
exactly.
choose to be a victim, that's on you. I mean, it's a choice, and you can be victimized and not be a victim
There
by choice.
there still is I think an active component of there needs to be a grieving process.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've torn my ACLs I should say, 4 times. I only have 2 of them. I've torn them both twice. I've had 3 ACL reconstructions. My first reconstruction came 3 days after I got home from Afghanistan, so I was still on active duty, and that representation of all of a sudden I'm high speed, and all of a sudden the speed changes and I can't do what I want to do. Right, my goal was actually to go SF after that deployment, but obviously that wasn't happening because I was having surgery then. When we as veterans look at that grieving process and say, quit being a victim, you're eliminating something that we actually need in terms of a human to process through what we're actually going through. Now, if you're being a victim, I would say you're never making active progress, right?
Mm-hmm.
But there's a process of grieving that needs to be had by every veteran who steps out of their circumstance and says, man, this really sucks. Because you have to feel that. You have to go through that. You have to understand it, compartmentalize it, and say, eventually, now what, right?
Yeah.
Because we have feelings. We're supposed to have feelings. We can't just say what we did in the military for 15 years for me, for, I think, 16, 18 years for you, Andy?
Yeah, 18.
18 years, right? You can't just do what we've done in the military for that long and say, I can't have feelings while I'm here. That's not how humans are supposed to function. So there needs to be this gray area of what's acceptable human emotion and what's eventually getting to, hey, you're being a victim and you're really not making any progress on the direction you should really be taking.
No, I agree wholeheartedly, right? You look at the 5 stages of grief, right? Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, acceptance. You go through this every day in some capacity, right? You can be late for work and go through this, right?
Especially
You're mad, no, I'm not that late.
duty.
Right, but okay, right? Like every day is right. I mean, think about put it this way: what happens when you wake up late, right? you're oh, I'm not that late. I'll make up the time. No, you won't. Right? Then you're angry. You're gonna be late. Like, well, maybe if I just lie to my boss or whatever. Right? And then you're depressed. She's like, fuck, I just don't want to deal with it. And then you're like, all right, you know what? I'm just gonna take it on the chin. The stages of grieving happen all the time, right? And then you think about some of the more extreme. It's like the loss of a loved one, right, or battle buddy, right? Then now it's drawn out to your point about being a victim. You're right. There's a difference between what was me, pity party, and also it feeling, because that's the other extreme, right? The other extreme of not is the guys that are Billy Badass, like you said, right? With Albert here, you came up chest puffed out, I got this, and you didn't realize, oh no, this is gonna hit me in the fucking face. I remember coming home from Gitmo. I had not a great deployment to Gitmo, and there was times where I'm like, man, I wish I was just back. I'm bargaining with going back to a place that wasn't good because it was, in my mind, better than where I was at, because I was refusing to accept and I was refusing to get into the depression that I had to get in before acceptance. So to that end, yes, work through the process, right? You can have the pity party, and now what? Mm-hmm. You can get upset, and now what? Yep. And also and then also with Gitmo, I thought, after Iraq, I delayed the inevitable coming home because I just partied for 18 months and didn't deal with life. And then once I dealt with it, I was like, okay, I had to go through this shit and go to the VA and seek counseling and yada yada. When I went through and came back from Gitmo, I thought, I'll just fast track this. I know what's going to happen next. I'll just get through it. I'll just get over it. Well, that ain't right? And then you mix that in with the divorce and custody battles and new girlfriend. I mean, there's a reason why I was all fucked up. Because I put myself in that position. I thought I could fast track it. To your point, Albert, with special operators, it's like you need to tell them, like, hey, this is going to suck, and you're going to struggle, and it's not going to speed you on, and you're going to go through the grieving process, and there's nothing you can do about it. You have to go through the process, and you have to feel through the process, and you have to make decisions, because you also don't want to get stuck in the process. Because those are the guys that go to the bar one time and never leave.
That's why you need more people. That's why you need more people. And so I'm a very positive guy. I think most people that have done the things that I've done have to be. And that's why I always call things like the golf swing approach to life. That, hey, if you start out high, hey, I want to be a ranger, and then you find out that, hey, you tore both knees, and then you're like, well, shit, now what do I do? And then bring it back to a positive. But like you said, every 5 minutes could be something new, right? Like, your water heater exploding today is going to put you in an oh shit moment. So, and it makes you prioritize and stuff, because life does happen and life's not waiting for you, and it's tough. It's hard to juggle all that. That's why you need to have, like one guy said, you need to have your own QRF of like 5-10 buddies that can just at a moment's notice, whether get on the phone and, hey guys, here's what happened. I had a flat tire this morning, and that kind of thing. Or even celebrations, like, hey guys, holy shit, man, we're having a new baby, and we're gonna name it Steve, and like, you have to be able to celebrate those things. And that's what I found. That's why I wish, I'm 42 now, but I wish I really would have appreciated the moments as they were happening more, and because, man, you're not in control of much. Like, I was flying these missions and doing all this kind of cool stuff. And then we get back, and I didn't touch a helicopter because we left ours over there. Didn't touch one for like 8 months. And then I'm not deploying, I'm leaving, so I don't get to fly anymore. And it just really, your career can just flame out, people getting injured and sent home, or it could freaking piddle out like mine did and just be like, stream, and then all of a sudden, drip. And it's like, oh man, I thought I was going to be this badass pilot guy. And anyway, my point being, just, you just need support. It's always better when you're around your buddies, and you guys can have your level of, I don't call it a bitch fest, but like, God, here's what I'm going through, the wife and the kids, and, I don't like cold weather and sand in my ass crack and stuff like that.
Here's the key, right? It's about finding your tribe.
Yeah,
you have
exactly.
a tribe. In the military, right, one of the beautiful things is you are assigned a tribe.
Yep.
Here's your team, squad, platoon, company, battalion, brigade, all the way up, right? Squadron, if you're fucking aviators, here's your crew, whatever, right? Like, all these words, but like, that is your tribe. So to your point, you're right. You need those 5-10 people that you can pick up, not just pick up the phone, but they'll get on a plane, right? Those are the type of people you need. You need someone that is in the car driving because they know. You call 9, 10, 11 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, right? They know that you're en route, and then to your point, they also have to be the type, right? That and I think about, right. As stupid as it sounds, dang old ACE method we learn in suicide prevention, right? Ask, care, escort, and that's not just when they're suicidal, but that's just okay. Hey, what's been going on with you? Oh man, the wife this and the dog that and the water heater this. Okay, well, what can we do about it? Right, and then I think I ask her, okay, what do we need to do? Got it. Listen to them because they have to feel the emotions, but you can't leave it with, fuck it, or let's have a beer, or right, leading to negative behaviors. It's got to be okay. Yeah. I hear you, and what can we do about it? Because now you're speaking from a place of empowerment. You got it on the table. Here, this is what's ailing you. Here's the problem, or here's the symptom to a problem. I have to do a little bit digging, and what are we going to do about it? Because that's the difference between getting stuck and moving forward, always moving forward.
That also has to be in some ways returned. That's the
Oh,
hard
it's
part.
two-way
Is
street.
Yeah. I work with a lot of people who are that person for people, right? They are the one who's giving, the one who's offering and supporting and helping everyone around them, but so often they're so burnt out because nobody is offering that in return. That when you build a tribe, there's two directions there, right? You have to be someone that offers things, and then you also have to allow yourself to take things. And if you do one too much, the relationship is going to suffer. And so, I think the most important thing for anyone, but especially veterans who are trying to build this tribe for themselves, is be able to have conversations about the give and the take. Not necessarily what you're taking and what you're giving, but actually have the conversation about the fundamental aspect of you're giving too much or you're taking too much. And be able to openly have those conversations. Because I've for example, I have a couple buddies that we go cold weather camping, we go camping, we go do things outdoors. We all live around the state of Wisconsin, but all over the place. And when we come together, the purpose of what we do together requires us all to provide, right? If you go cold weather camping, especially in Wisconsin, if you don't bring the right stuff, you're fucked. And so, oftentimes, I'll bring extra stuff. My friend Griff will bring extra stuff. Kevin will bring extra stuff, because just knowing that people could be fucked, we all bring extra stuff just in case. So we don't have that problem, right? We bring extra food sometimes. Sometimes one of us will forget, and that's why we do that. That kind of forces us in many ways to provide an equal measure of give and take, and then we have conversations about it. We talk about that. We talk about mental health all the time when we're sitting around by the fire. And I think that's something veterans really need to do, is go find a fire pit and sit around it. And don't just do it to drink alcohol. Do it to really talk about life and what you're going through, and be open to having those conversations, and giving and taking, because it's important, to allow yourself to be what I think a lot of us think is selfish, for just having a problem, right? It's selfish of me to have an issue, and I don't want to bring it to the table because other people will think I'm trying to take too much. Well, I think as long as we're reciprocally trying to support everyone and offering, it's important to take as well.
Which just goes back to that tribal mentality too, of imagine these Indian tribes who had 20 teepees in a very small area of space, and they sat around the same fire every night practically together. So small teams can always do great things because they're communicating constantly. Somebody's got that person's back when they're bathing in the river because there may be a fucking mountain lion coming out of nowhere or a bear coming out of somewhere, and making sure that everybody's got abundance and nobody's taking too much, like you said, or harmonizing with that relationship. And imagine how simple that would be if you had that lifestyle of just, hey, a snake got in my teepee this morning. Oh, no shit. Well, and just you'd work through it because you'd have such a comfort level at that point. Honestly, it sounds weird, but I don't say it took generations. It took generations to not only make that tribal mentality, but also just took a few generations to completely wipe out that tribal mentality. And now we're, hey, I'll go work for big corporations, and you get light bulbs and electricity and heat, and pluck 100 chickens a day, and things will be better for your kids, right? How many times do we think shit like that? Well, things will be better for the kids and that kind of thing. Well, how about making things better for yourself right now, and maybe the kids see that and see. That's what I try to always be as best I can, the best example I can for my kids. Of like, I'm not as active as I want to be all the time. I'm 42, so when you get into your 40s, things just start happening weird. It's like, oh man, I'm not 20 anymore. I get hurt too damn easily. So and you do have to take time. That's why it's easier to work with a smaller group of people. It's easier to take a paycheck from a smaller group, like local grocery store, mom and pop shops, as opposed to working for a big chain store. Because those big chain stores, they're only worried about their elite level tribe. They only want to make billions and trillions for the billionaires and trillionaires. And I'm not poo-pooing on them. That's what you want to do. You want to make that kind of big ass money. But if you really want to make a difference in your life and your family's life, it's going to be at that small team level. There's just no other way of doing that. So I would say challenge, prove me wrong. If you can
I own a small business of 15 employees, and I was just earlier today we were shooting content, and one of the questions that was asked of me by the videographer was, how does love play a role in business? And I was like, if you don't love the people you work with, especially in a small business, you're not going to want to be around them. They're not going to want to stay. And this is, as I got one of my guys who was off the clock for like 2 hours, but they're building an employee kind of MWR rec room, right? And so I'm like, hey, you guys can, the lumber, I have the lumber from another project we dismantled. So I'm like, you can have the lumber, you can use the tools and everything else, but you're going to build it off your time. And you can, they had like 50 Xbox games that came off a job. I'm like, you can have it, right? But it's like he was sticking around to build it because he wants it for him and the other guys so they can have a badass employee lounge.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, that's what love looks like when it's like, oh, this all actually makes sense. And so to that end, you have to have that. And that's why I don't work for a big company, because when I got back home and I did start working for a big company, I didn't have that tribe. I looked at everybody around me as they were going to stab me in the back. Now, were they? No, but some of them were, and I couldn't differentiate between the two. Right? Anybody can be an asshole or a saint behind an email. You don't know.
Yeah.
And that's where I struggled. And there's some veterans that come out, especially the veterans that are 20-plus year vets, right? Because they've made it to sometimes those more elite levels, right? When you're talking the Army, E8, E9, or 06 or above, and it's like they come back and they can work for corporations because they know how to politic, and they know to take some things at face value, and they've learned that game. I'd argue for a lot of veterans, they had the slightest clue how to network or politic or build a tribe. They're used to, hey, here's your battle buddy left or right, you know what? And also it's the one up, one down job, right? Yeah. You got to do the job below the person that one rank below you, and you got to learn the job one rank above you. And you do that, you can be successful in the military. But in the civilian world, that don't exist. You have to intentionally create it, and that's where a lot of veterans feel alone and isolated, and without the resources. Because on top of it, they're told in the transition assistance program, oh yeah, this is just like the Army. Just show up and get a job, and it's like, well, what do you do at 5 o'clock when you leave work? Because in the Army, there's always shit to do, and there's always people to be around.
Yeah, exactly.
The Army assigns you friends.
Mm-hmm. That's what I was saying. Like the big corporations took us out of human nature. Human nature is to hang out, and it just feels normal, right? I mean, I'm an extrovert, so maybe I'm speaking out of my own experiences, and that's totally fine. But like, TV didn't exist 200 years ago. Like, go pet a fucking horse or something if you're an introvert. Go talk to a horse. They're not going to judge you, but at least you got somebody to talk to. But
there's. I mean, take it back from TV. It was just electricity has made us isolated. Electricity, because now we have the Industrial Revolution and globalization, and even now. And what's interesting now is this younger generation, they don't want that. This idea of globalization has kind of peaked. If you look what's happening with China and Russia and the United States and tension and relationships, it's like we're gonna, and even generations. You know, there's less people in these next generations, so they're going to want to be more tribal. If you look at Europe and America, populations are declining, right? So people in general are going to be more tribal. They're going to grow up more tribal. They're going to want to be more tribal. The goal is, to not rely on technology, especially with veterans. It's like, man, when I heard about they had veterans having cell phone at, in basic training, I'm like, what the hell? And then you have veterans that deploy with technology. It's like, you have no idea how many good conversations and life you're missing out on in the smoke pit. I mean, in Iraq, it was like made a phone call a month, and that was good to hook. Because, at the end of the day, the only people that mattered when I was in Iraq were the people to the left and the right. Back home were people back home. They all were equally not important that day.
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, because when the gunfight happens in a few minutes, they're not involved. Home's not involved. Yeah, so, yeah. I was going to say something about that, too. So even when I was born in 1980, and so I knew what rotary phones are, and and had I think my first cell phone when I was 19 or something, big giant brick Nextel thing or whatever. And but and I wonder what the historians are going to look back on us from like 1,000 years from now. They're going to be like, well, there was this first American Revolution in the 1700s, and then there's this weird internet revolution, kind of like what you said, Andy, that I think we've peaked as far as, I think the globalists, or whatever you want to call them, have gone as far as they can, because now we, as minions, we all know about it. It's out there. And the globalists want us to be non-human and just get in lockstep. But then, especially veterans, go, fuck you. It's way against human nature, but I'm going to fight you tooth and nail. Come get my gun.
Even from a capitalist perspective, humans are already saying, hey, it's not about the cheapest price, right? That's one of the reasons why globalization happens, is shared resources and reduced cost. And this next generation, even our generation, I was born in 84, we're like, well, hold on. It's not about the lowest price. It's about what gives me the best outcome. And the best outcome often is the best relationships, right? It's like, and that's important, versus doing things cheap and easy and running everybody through the meat grinder, which is the approach that the military has definitely taken, right? Because we have a 1 million man standing army. It's not tribal, right? There weren't. I know we've been using American Indian or Native American references. There was 10, 20 million Native Americans across North America, but tribes were 100 or 200 or 300 or maybe 500 was a big tribe. Like, it wasn't this huge conglomerate like we are now, where everyone's connected by the phone in their pocket. So veterans have to learn to be, and people, right? Now we're way off track, but people have to learn to be tribal and have people that you can really rely on. Doesn't matter how many likes, comments, and shares. How many people can you pick up on the phone that'll show up at your doorstep within minutes if you need them to?
Yeah. Let you borrow a truck to go get some firewood for your family. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So, yeah, just neighborly, or whatever you want to call it.
We're saying this. We're saying the same thing, and it's an important for. We'll sort of wrap it on this note. It's important that veterans find their new tribe, and for veterans out there, they're transforming from troops and boots to veterans of the civilian world. It's on you. The U.S. Army, the DoD, whoever you worked for, will no longer supply you, like Dylan talked about earlier, right, with all these resources. So it's on you to find your tribe. And if you can't find one, do the next best thing and create one. So that's my top takeaway. Dylan, top takeaway from today's call.
I think just further understanding the trends has helped us get to this, right? To exactly what you said, is like understanding that there's a consistent feeling of betrayal. There's people that just don't want to open up about things, whatever that interaction requires. They don't want to say, I have problems, and then have the community be like, we can help you or we can support you. They don't want that. They're scared of that, and for whatever reason. And so like we come down to this final kind of reality that veterans need to expand themselves within their community, and then also expand their community at the same time. Like, it's kind of a two level process, I think, is you need to expand yourself to be mentally able to take criticism, to take support, to take whatever it is that you're afraid to take, and then also to be a part of a community that requires you to give a part of yourself or a part of your resources to then also take and kind of complete that cycle.
I like it. Albert, top takeaway.
Yeah, I think we're all in agreement that you can do such great things with just small groups. I mean, buddy teams, fire teams, 4, 5, 6, less than 10. You can take over the world if you have the greatest 10 people in your immediate tribe. I mean, just think about it. That's all you got to do, guys. Just think about it and wrap your arms around the people that are closest to you and let them wrap around you, and your life will be a hell of a lot more meaningful. I know I've gained a lot of value from that, and I love that every day I get goosebumps when I'm talking to my clients and that I get to do it tomorrow. So I'm glad you guys got to hear this and hear us and connect and hear us bounce off ideas off each other too. So that's super cool.
Appreciate it, Albert.
No, I appreciate that. It's one thing when you can find your tribe, find your purpose. I talk about, I did a TEDx a couple of years ago. It was all about transforming your pain into passion to define your purpose. And you sounds like, I mean, really, you've embodied that. And I guess here's the fourth P, get paid, right? And that's the thing, right? If you can transform your pain into passion to define your purpose and get paid for it, right? That's an added bonus. Dylan does counseling, with what you're doing, supporting veterans, getting their full disability, like you're finding a way to support people and also then support your goals and dreams and aspirations. And that's my top takeaway. Ultimately, when you come back as a veteran, you take care of you and you'll get yours. If you don't take care of you, you're not going to get shit. And I mean that because, like Dylan talked about, we get a sense of entitlement as veterans because we were handed so many things for so long and we were told so many good things about ourselves. When you come back home and when you're a veteran in the civilian world, you get out of the world what you put in. So put yourself out there, surround yourself with the right tribe, challenge yourself, challenge those around you, add value everywhere you go, and you will build the life that you want to live. That's it. We're not going to put an if and or about it. Do that. And if you haven't heard lately, because it is a struggle out there, and you are entitled to struggle, and you are entitled to be heard, and share your experience with everybody else. It's important that here on this podcast and every day that you feel at home. So, for everyone listening, Dylan, Albert, thanks for joining us. Welcome home.
My pleasure. Take care, guys.